Thanks for joining us. This is the pilot training for the 6 agencies that have volunteered to pilot the eBridge telecommunications system for medical control and hospital communications. Once the region determines that we're going to pull the trigger on that. So this is the culmination of a multi-year discussion and project and finances and collaboration and coordination spearheaded by REMAC and our own Dr. Kugler's. So thank you to everybody, and I'll leave it in General Devices' hands.
Great. Thank you very much, Don. Hi, everyone. My name is Jimmy Nejma. I'm from General Devices. We're the company that makes the eBridge application that we're going to be talking about here today. eBridge is basically what you guys are going to be starting to use for doing your notifications to the hospitals when you're bringing a patient there. You'll actually see on my screen right now, I've got an iPad up in the front, and then kind of behind it, I actually have the hospital side of what this looks like. So for today's training, I'm going to focus mostly obviously on the EMS side, which is what you guys are going to be using, but I do want to show you what it looks like in the hospitals as well. This way you're familiar with it, so you kind of understand what they're going to see and everything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn off my video here for while we're doing the demo, because at one point during the demo, I am going to show a video call between EMS and the hospital, and I'll obviously need my camera on my PC available for that. So let me just go ahead and get my video shut off, and then we're ready to kind of go ahead and start. So again, if we're looking at the iPad over here, you'll notice we have a few different alerts set up on the screen. So each of these different buttons is, as you can see, for a different type of alert. And this is what we're starting with. This isn't necessarily, what it's going to be in 6 months from now, though. For example, based on your feedback from the EMS side, as well as feedback from the hospitals, we may end up adding a couple other buttons, or maybe eliminating some of these buttons and combining them together. We'll kind of see how it goes, like I said, based on everyone's feedback. None of this stuff is really set in stone as of the way it is right now, especially you guys being the pilot agencies. The feedback that you guys provide to the REMSCO folks is really going to kind of help, guide the way that this is going to go in the future. So what we're going to do, and I'll back up a little bit. So essentially the way this works is that eBridge is an app that's going to run on your devices that you have in EMS. So it works on iPhones and iPads, Android phones and tablets, as well as Windows-based PCs. And that could be anything from a desktop, which obviously you're not going to have in the back of an ambulance, or a laptop, a Toughbook, a tablet like a Surface tablet or something like that. So it runs on all the major platforms. There are some advantages to using it on a mobile device like an iPhone, iPad, or an Android device that has a built-in GPS. There are some PCs that have built-in GPSs, like some of the Toughbooks and Surface tablets and things like that, but not all of them do. And the big advantage to that is when you actually send an alert, and I'll show you this in a second, it'll be able to utilize the GPS of the device to show your position on the map as you're en route to the hospital, and give them an accurate, up-to-date, real-time ETA. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in, and we're actually just going to start with the ALS BLS notification button here. So you'll see when we click on that, basically it pops up a menu of all the different hospitals. So you would go ahead and pick the facility that you're going to be transporting to. For my demo here, I'm just going to use NUMC. So when I go ahead and click that, it then brings us into this kind of form that we have here. And again, some of the data between the different types of alerts is similar, like patient info, age, and gender, obviously. But then there's a lot of things that are specific for each type of alert. So for example, the ALS BLS notification is, kind of a generic one. So it's got a couple more options on here. But when you go to something like stroke, it's going to have like time of last known well and things like that, stuff that's specific to each of those different types of alerts. So again, looking on the screen here, you'll see the first thing we have is to kind of go ahead and pick our priority, as you guys call it, the tag color. So we have to have it identified as low, medium, and high in our system for it to change the color on the receiving side. So I just put a little key up there to let you know green is low, yellow, medium, red is high. So if I go ahead and pick this one as a low priority, you'll see when we receive the alert on the other side, it'll show up as green. All of the other alerts that we saw on the home screen, like STEMI, stroke, trauma, sepsis, etc., all those default to high. You don't even need to pick them. But for, the more generic ALS, BLS notification, we give you the ability to kind of set that. Moving down from there, obviously you can see the patient info section, a section with age and gender. So if we click on age, now I'm doing this on an iPad, you'll see it defaults to the number keypad. If you're doing it on a smaller device like an iPhone or an Android phone, it'll actually just show you the number pad when it's a number only field like this. If it's a regular type in box, it'll default to the regular keyboard, and you could obviously change it. On the iPads, this is the number keyboard, so this is how it shows up. So I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a 45-year-old male. Then you'll see the next section we have down from there is a spot to add any attachments. So we have this on all the different types of alerts. So you could always add in either a photo or a video clip. Photo can be used for things like a driver's license or an insurance card, which will, allow the hospital to maybe start on pre-registration. Video clip could be used for something like a stroke assessment. If you guys are, doing a stroke assessment in the field, you can record a short video clip of that. And then moving down from there, and actually here, I'll just go in. I'm just going to snap a photo of my keyboard. I don't have anything exciting here to actually attach, but we'll go ahead and just snap a photo so you can see what it looks like on the receive side. Then moving down from there, we have a section called details. It's just asking us the level of care, whether it's ALS or BLS, isolation room required, yes or no. And then we have one of these type in boxes, like I mentioned. So you can see when I click on that, pops up the keyboard and I can go in and start typing in, whatever it may be. So I'm going to just go with abdominal pain. Moving down from there, we have a quick section just to do some of the basic vitals. So we're just going to go through there and we'll say, put in a blood pressure and a heart rate, respiratory rate. And then another section that we have on each of these different forms is right below that, additional info. That's basically a catch-all. So if there's any other information that you want to include in the alert that you're making to the hospital that doesn't fit in any of the kind of predetermined sections above it, you can use this additional info section as like a catch-all to put anything else in it. So again, it is a type in box, so you can click on it and just start typing. You also do have the ability, if you want, to use the voice to text of the devices. This way you can get the info in there quicker. Now, as I'm sure you guys as I'm sure you guys know, excuse me, sometimes the voice to text on the devices gets a little crazy when it comes to medical terms, but you'll be able to get in the bulk of the info, and then you can always go in and edit it, manually using the keyboard to get it to say what you need. And then just scrolling down from there, the other couple sections. So it's going to tell us who this is going to. So for my test setup here, I basically just have it going to 2 devices in the hospital and then 2 devices at MedCom. That's important to note because any of these alerts that you guys are sending, in the beginning, if you remember, we picked the hospital that we're sending it to. So it's going to go to whatever devices that they've assigned in the emergency department for receiving these alerts. It's also always going to copy MedCom. MedCom is going to be copied on all these alerts, so they're always in the loop of the notifications that you're making to the different facilities. And then below that, there's an add new event button. I'm not going to go into that yet, but I'll show you that in a minute. And then the last thing at the bottom is the big green notify button. And as you can imagine, that's what actually starts this notification and sends it to the hospital. So if I click that, I just get a confirmation pop up, and then I can go ahead and send that alert. And now that's going to send it to the hospital. And now again, this is the hospital side here. So you guys don't need to know this side of it too much, but I do want to make you aware of kind of what it looks like. So at least you understand, kind of what it looks like on their end. So they get an audible and visual alert. It's going to tell them what unit number it's from, the type of notification it is. In this case, it's an ALS, BLS. And obviously it shows them the time that it came in, and you can see that's counting up as we go. So if I were to come in and actually open that up, all of that same information that I filled out on the EMS side is present in here. So if we go to the top, it shows us, the priority is low, 45-year-old male. I've got that picture attached here that I had sent in earlier. If I open that up, again, nothing exciting. It was just my keyboard. But obviously, if that was like a driver's license or an insurance card, and this was also copying, say, the registration person at the hospital, they could actually go in and register the patient. Then all the other info I put in is in here as well. And what I'm going to do is, you'll notice this flashing acknowledge EMS button down here. If I flip back over to my iPad, you'll notice the devices that I sent it to at the hospital both have a red acknowledgement tag next to them. If I flip over here and then click this, so now that's the hospital acknowledging your alert. If I flip back to the EMS side on the iPad, you can see I get a notification back on the iPad. And again, I know you guys aren't hearing the audible alerts because obviously we're doing this through Zoom and I'm wearing a headset, but there is an audible alert, that goes along with all these. It's not just visual flashing. So it tells us, that it was acknowledged by the hospital. And if I click view, it basically just updates the screen. You'll notice now the device that did the acknowledgement actually shows like a little green tag over here. So we know that it's been acknowledged. One other section that I'll show you now is if we kind of look down at the bottom, we have this event/patient changes section. So this is going to show timestamped events of everything that occurs in this case. So for example, on the EMS side, when I click the notify button, it shows the timestamp in here of that notification, as well as it started the inbound tracking. And you can see down here, it's showing the ETA. That's going to be updating in real time on the hospital side as well. So they always know your ETA. And then when the hospital actually acknowledged it, you could see it tells us who acknowledged it. It was the hospital device number 1, and it shows us the time it was acknowledged. So you know that. So all of that information that happens during this case all gets timestamped in there. I'm just going to flip back over to the hospital side to kind of show you that GPS tracking I was talking about. So if I minimize out of here, you'll see in the background, they're going to have this map view on one of the devices in their ED, which will basically show your position on the map along with obviously the position of their hospital. Now, as you guys can see, the hospital I have over here, I put in the address for NUMC, and I'm obviously over here in northern New Jersey. So, normally the map would not be this far zoomed out because your transports aren't going to be this far away. But you could see how the map will automatically zoom. And then I'm actually going to turn off the auto zoom just to kind of show you what we do on the hospital side. What we end up doing is we put a little like geofence. You can see that little blue circle in there. We put a geofence by their ambulance bay. And essentially, whenever you guys pull into that geofence, it's going to send another alert to the hospital to let them know that you guys have arrived. So this way they know, you're going to be backing in and unloading the patient, walking through the door within the next couple of minutes. So all that is done automatically. You guys don't have to do anything to make that occur. It just happens using the device's GPS. You'll also see over here, they have this card. And if you remember, I selected this as a low priority, which set it as a green. If I were to pick a medium priority, this card over here would be yellow, or if a high priority, this card would be red. So however many ambulances they have coming in, they're going to have a card over here for each one. And then, like I said, once those ambulances pull within that geofence, instead of showing an ETA here, it's going to show a check mark saying that they've arrived. And what it will do is it's going to continue showing them on the screen for 10 minutes after you've arrived. And then it will automatically clear off the screen and they won't be able to see you anymore. So I just want to make sure that's clear. The only time that they can actually see where your ambulance is when you actually start one of these alerts. So if you start an alert and send it to the hospital, they're going to see you on the map and obviously, see as you're driving closer. And then once you get to the hospital, 10 minutes after that, it's automatically going to clear off the screen. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn my auto zoom back on and basically zoom back out. So this way you can see. So again, the ambulance will show up over here. And like I said, as you're getting closer, that will be updating in real time. Obviously, since I'm sitting in my house, it's not moving at all. But, had I been in the back of a moving vehicle, you would actually see that position on the map changing. So a couple other things that they can do. So, they've now received this alert at the hospital. So if I go ahead and bring it back up, they may look through all this and they may either have a question for you or they may want to tell you like a bed assignment, for example. So they have the ability to send an alert back to you using a feature called group chat. So they can go ahead and click on this button here and they can just say, bed 6 on arrival. And if they send that, when we flip back over to the EMS side, you'll see you guys will get an alert and basically it's going to show, that there's a message when you click on it. you'll be able to see that message. And then if you wanted to reply back, obviously you could, or, obviously if it's just something like that telling you, the bed number, you don't really need to reply back to that. So just one thing I forgot to mention before, when that alert got sent into the hospital, again, they had that flashing acknowledge button they had to click to let you guys know that they've opened it. If they don't acknowledge it within 90 seconds after you send it, you'll actually get a different alert back that's actually going to play more of like an error sound. It's kind of a type sound. This way, you know that, oh, wait, something went wrong with that alert for whatever reason. They haven't opened and acknowledged it. So if something like that happens, it could be for a myriad of different reasons. It could be, some type of connectivity issue on your side as you guys are driving, en route to the hospital. It could be something on their end, maybe their internet's down at the hospital or something else is going on. For whatever reason, they didn't open and acknowledge that alert. So if that's the case, then you guys can kind of fall back to your existing, means of communication where you would use your radio or whatever it may be to kind of call in through Medcom. So again, you're always going to have a backup means of communication for if there's ever any situations for whatever the case may be where this doesn't get through to the hospital. So you're always still going to have your backup communication that you can use. So then if there's anything, so say you're, bringing this patient in and for whatever reason, something happens and you want to alert the hospital about a change in the patient's condition. You could do that via the group chat. So again, you guys have the group chat button on your side as well that you can click on and type a message in. But if it's an alert where you really want to get their attention, like, say patient went into cardiac arrest or something like that, we have a button down here that says add new event. If we go ahead and click on that, you'll see there's an option in there, patient condition changed. And if I go ahead and click on that, it gives me a little edit box and the keyboard pops up where I can type in what the new condition is. So I can go through and say, patient went into cardiac arrest. And then once I move the keyboard out of the way on that, now on the hospital side, you could see they're getting an alert and it tells them right here that patient went into cardiac arrest. And if they actually click open, it'll move them down on the screen and they'll actually see that here as well. And again, because we added that in to the event, it shows up in here with a timestamp and everything like that. And you can add more condition changes as needed. You'll basically, I think by default, I configured it where you can add up to 5 of those while you're en route to the hospital. So you could, from the EMS side, click that again if the condition changes again and you want to put another one in. And each time you add it, it'll just add another one of these condition changed events down here with the new condition. All right, then another option that the hospital has is if they have more than just like a basic quick question that, they think they can get answered by typing in, into the chat, they do have the ability to place a call back to you. So you'll see on their side, they have a green button down here on the bottom that says call EMS. So if I actually go ahead and click on that, what that's going to do is that's going to start a video call from the hospital device. And there I am again in the background, you can see, to your device in EMS. And if you look on the EMS side, you can see on the iPad, we're getting an incoming call. So I can go ahead and actually answer that. And then that's going to give us a 2-way video call. I just need to mute my microphone on the iPad so I don't get feedback. And now you can see me in here 2 times. So obviously, since I'm standing in front of the iPad and the computer, you're seeing me twice. But normally the hospital would be seeing you and you would be seeing the hospital. Any of the calls that you guys do through here are all going to be recorded as well. So all of that information that gets sent in through the case, like all the textual information, as well as any calls that are done, will also be recorded. So that could always be reviewed later on for QA/QI purposes and things like that. Now, when you want to end the call, obviously the hospital can end it from their side or you can end it from your side. If you tap on the screen, you'll see a button up at the top appears that says leave. You can click on that and say, yes, we want to leave the call. And then it's just going to take you back to the screen you were on prior to that. So now it's just showing us, back in the case screen. And then again, you'll see on the screen, it shows us that the call was started and the call was ended along with the timestamps that occurred. So that's pretty much everything that goes into, one of the ALS BLS notifications. Now, all of the other alerts basically function exactly the same way. Like I said, some of the fields are just going to look a little different. So for example, if I go ahead and, click back and go to the home screen again, like I'll bring up the stroke alert next. So if we look at that one, again, some of the information is the same. So the one difference is up at the top, we don't have that priority picker like we had on the last one. Again, anything other than the ALS, BLS notification is always going to default to the high priority. So you don't even need to go in and pick it. We just hide that and have that as a default. But obviously we've got the age and gender in here again. And then again, since this is a stroke alert, we've got some of the stroke specific questions. So the last known well time, for example. So if I click on that, it's going to give us the standard, in this case, iPhone or iPad date time picker. So you can go through and, pick the date. You can go through and, adjust the time as needed. And then when you say done, it automatically fills that in there. Same thing for time of symptom onset. The BGL, you can go ahead and type in, whatever their level is for that. And then scrolling down from there, like I said, every screen has the attachment section. So you could either do pictures or in this case of a stroke assessment, you may want to do a video clip. If you are doing a video clip, so with the pictures, you could basically take the picture and have the device in any orientation, because on the receiving side, they're always going to have a rotate button where they can rotate it as needed if it comes in the wrong orientation. The video is a little different though with the videos, and it will even prompt you when you go to start a video to hold the device in landscape mode, sideways. This way on their side, when they receive it, it's in the correct orientation and it's easy for them to play back. Moving down from there, some of the more obviously stroke specific things, we've got the Cincinnati stroke scale. So again, it's just the 3 simple questions. You can go in and answer yes and no for each one, and then a section for vital signs. And then like we mentioned before, the additional info, which is kind of the catch-all to put anything else. So then at that point, you would click notify like we did before, and the hospital would receive that notification and, be able to do everything like we showed earlier, whether it's group chatting back to you, clicking the acknowledge button, or, doing a call back to you if they wanted to do to have a live interaction with you. So all of that kind of, works the same for all of them. All right, so I'm just going through my list to make sure I didn't miss anything, because sometimes I leave important information out and I don't want to do that, obviously. I think for the most part, that kind of covers all the stuff to the hospital. So one other thing to keep in mind when it comes to the alerts you're sending to the hospitals, this really isn't going to be the case for phase 1, because phase 1 is really just you guys sending the alerts to the ED, and then, they kind of end there. But ultimately, each of the hospitals has the ability, if they want to start expanding the use of eBridge within the hospital. So for example, if you guys send in a stroke alert and they want to send that out to, like the neurology team, they can actually have a button on their screen where they hit stroke alert, and that's basically going to forward it out to whoever they assign in the stroke team. So all of that information that you guys included from the EMS side, as well as any additional information that the ED may add to the case, can now be blasted out to everyone in the stroke team. So they'll all get this on their phones and be able to see all that information. They're not going to see your location on the map, but they will see your ETA. And if they've been added to the case before you guys actually arrive, once you do pull into that geofence around the hospital, it's actually going to send that EMS arrived alert out to everyone on the team as well. So this way they're all aware, hey, EMS is here. They're going to be walking in with that patient any second now. So this way they can all start getting everything ready on their side. So just wanted to make you guys aware that, that is a possibility. Again, not so much for this initial phase, but ultimately the hospitals will probably all look to expand this internally, so they don't have to rely on, doing things like paging and stuff like that to alert the teams and everything. This obviously gives them a much richer experience with more detail. Another important piece, anything that you do within the eBridge app stays within the eBridge app. So for example, if you take a photo or do a video clip or anything like that, that information is only in the eBridge app. It's not going to appear in the device's photo album or, get uploaded to iCloud or Google Photos or anything like that. It all stays within the eBridge app. And all of these alerts that you guys send from the EMS side are going to automatically purge off of your device after 2 hours. So basically, if you send it 2 hours later, it's going to get deleted out of the device completely. So you wouldn't even be able to go back and see it after that point. Again, everything that gets sent is getting logged on a server that REMSCO has access to, as well as each hospital will have access to any of the alerts that come to their hospital. Basically, each hospital is going to set up their own server as well. So any alerts that you guys send to them, they'll be able to go back and review after the fact, whether it's a week later, month later, whatever it may be for QA, QI type purposes. And again, everything that gets sent is from any of the EMSs to any of the hospitals is all going to be present on the REMSCO server as well. So again, for QA, QI purposes, they could always pull that up, later on if need be. So the one other type of alert I want to just show real quick before we get into questions is going to be the medical control alert. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to exit out of there. And on this side, let me just go in and kill this case I started earlier. And then I'm going to switch my PC. Right now, I was signed in as one of the hospitals. I'm just going to sign in as a Medcom device. And those alerts that I sent in before during our demo will actually both probably pop up as soon as I sign in because it's going to retrieve those. And then what I'm going to do is I'll show you the one other type of alert that we have. Let me bring the iPad screen back up. So we have another type of alert on here called a medical control request. So basically, before you guys actually send an alert to the hospital, if you want to ask for orders or decision support, anything like that, here's my alerts that I had sent earlier. Because again, Medcom gets copied on all of them. So since the Medcom device wasn't signed in, once I just signed in, it just received all those alerts. So I basically just ignored them. But anyway, going back to the medical control request. So on your side, if you guys click on that blue button, we do have the tag color for this one, so you guys can assign that. So this is the one other alert other than the ALS, BLS, where you can set that. And then again, just some basic information, patient age and gender, any pictures or video clips you want to attach. And then we get into kind of the, medical control specific stuff. So are you looking for orders? Is it an RMA, destination decision, or is it something else? And if it's other, obviously there's a box down below it that you could type in to, say what the request is. And then again, just like all the other alerts, we have the additional info box down here where you can add any other information that you may need to add. And then when we go ahead and click on the request medical control button at the bottom, it's going to send that alert. Again, this one's not going to any of the hospitals. This is just going to Medcom. So if we flip back over on the iPad, you'll notice down here in the team section, whereas before we had the 2 hospital devices in addition to the Medcom devices, obviously in this case, it's only showing the Medcom devices because that's the only spot it's going right now. So then if we come in and open it up, and then I'll acknowledge it. Again, the acknowledge works the same as before. If they don't acknowledge you within 90 seconds, you guys are going to get an alert with an error sound on your device. If they do acknowledge you, then you get the same pop-up that we saw before, and you get a more positive sound, like a kind of an okay type sound, so you know that they've acknowledged you without even really needing to look at the device. You'll just be able to hear the alert that comes back. And then at this point, if you were requesting orders, for example, or an RMA where a physician needs to speak with you, again, they're going to have the call EMS button. So just like what we did before from the hospital side, they can click that and start a video call to you guys. You guys can have your discussion. And then once it's all done, you hang up the call, and then, Medcom can end that case. So again, that's basically how the actual medical control request looks when that comes in. So do you guys, at this point, I guess we can kind of open it up for any questions that you guys have. So go ahead and let me know what you guys have.
Hey, Jim, it's Don. Let me jump in.
Sure.
So thank you so much. What we wanted to do as a region is equate this as much to currently what we're doing now. So the BLS ALS notification is something familiar to everybody. Medical control consult, think of that as your runs or your orders. something not unfamiliar. Same with STEMIs, same with strokes. Sepsis we'll talk about a little bit during the educational stuff that's about to be released to complement this rollout. Sepsis is not new to EMS, but is somewhat new to us in this region. So we're looking to bolster all of that with some education. All of the information in every one of these fields is completely optional. Obviously, our standard has been and will remain your agency name, which is done by your login on the tablet. So that's out of the way. Your unit number, which is done by the login on the tablet. So that's out of the way. What hospital you're going to, we saw how to select that. Your age and gender of the patient with their chief complaint, and your ETA. So the ETA is automated. It literally is just taking what we currently do right now by radio or cell phone and digitizing that. The real focus here is better hospital communication, better patient care driven by that. Jimmy alluded to, where we could be heading with strokes and STEMIs, and really seeing a dramatic improvement in, door to needle times and CAT scan times and everything that we know really matters for good patient outcome. And then lastly, the huge benefit is really engaging all of our partner EMS agencies, the commercials included, where for the first time ever, the ERs and medical control will be able to see and interact with all of our different EMS agencies. And that was driven principally by conversations with hospital leadership that wanted to know, in our discussions with hospital turnaround times and diversions, how come the 911 ambulances stop coming, but the commercials still keep coming? And, the reality is we haven't been as good as we possibly could be with coordinating them. So this is a step towards that. And we have commitments from every one of our commercial, hospital-based, municipal, volunteer, combo, fire-based, you name it, everyone's on board with this. So it is a potentially huge step forward for us as a region for collaboration, coordination, and most importantly, patient care. So thank you. I'll leave it to you guys to chime in.
Question for you, Dr. Singh here from NUMEC. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Since we have the Med Control phone, what about MCI? If there's a mass casualty incident, is there any option in this platform for that? Or is it just the usual, phone call kind of thing? Just a thought.
So for right now, that we've not put in an MCI type button, but obviously, again, as everyone comes on board and kind of starts getting used to it and everything, that's
Right.
the type of feedback. If you feel there's a good use case for having a dedicated MCI button, absolutely something like that can be added in, no question.
Okay. Other thing, in your example, when you were updating, that patient went into cardiac arrest.
Mhm.
On the EMS side, you put that info, you send it to the hospital. On the hospital end, I know the acknowledge button, it wasn't highlighted. Like, how when the call came in first time, there was a point on the right lower quadrant of the screen where when you send the update on the patient status changed, that button wasn't showing that I could press unless I was seeing it differently.
No. So basically, we only require the acknowledgement on that initial alert, not necessarily on any changes and things like that. But again, as feedback, if that's something that you think would be beneficial down the road after you guys start using it, we can require acknowledgements for other types of alerts. Right now, we just have it configured to only require an acknowledgement on that initial alert from EMS, so they're aware that you guys did receive the alert. So this way, they know they don't need to fall back to some alternate means of communication.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, guys? There's got to be something else. On Sunday, we had lots of questions.
Let's throw another one in. PALS.
All right.
Is PALS a separate one, or is it under ALS and just the age will change?
I'm sorry, what was the what type of alert?
For a pediatric code, PALS, PALS.
So Don, I don't know, what was your thinking on that? Did you want to have a separate button, or?
So close this out, hit cardiac respiratory arrest. And this is the mask that we came up with. And again, drawing as much and trying to keep it as familiar to providers. You know, the acknowledgement is here on the EMS end. Technology is a challenge for some people. We're frequently, you know, not well accompanied with hands in the back of the ambulance. So we need to keep it as streamlined, as familiar as possible. And then the acknowledgement on the hospital end is the learning curve and the nuance there is going to be, for the first time ever, our hospitals actually have interaction with EMS before arrival. And hopefully we can move to a world where they're better prepared for us, whether that be, you know, resus room, triage, waiting room, urgent care, or whatever else might be on the horizon. You know, so baby steps. We'll start with what we're familiar with, but this is the cardiac arrest mask. So it's age. So if we put in here, God forbid, an 8-year-old male, you know, what care they're getting, whether they're getting BVM, BLS airway, advanced airway, capnography, whether they're pulseless currently, CPR prior to arrival. And this was all taken directly from protocol. So, you know, IVIO, defibrillation, Lucas device or commercially, you know, compression device, and then what resuscitative efforts have they gotten. So the hospital will, you know, see this. And additionally, Jim didn't show it, but as the EMS provider clicks off in these cases, once the case is on the hospital screen, it's live updating. So if we click off something else or add something else, you don't have to re-notify. It changes live on the hospital side. So Jim, can you just show them that actually?
Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to send this in. So I didn't fill out any of the fields on this case. So I'm just going to go ahead and send this in. And again, I'm signed in as the Medcom device right now, but it'll still work. So, you know, right now, for example, nothing is selected in airway, right? So if I come over here back to my iPad, I'll just move it to the side so you can actually see this happen live. So if I go into the airway section and click BLS airway, you'll see as soon as I clicked it here, it showed up over here. And then same thing, if I go down and, you know, say CPR in progress, EMS provider, I check that off, it appears over here as well. So basically, as EMS is adding information in, that will update in real time on the screen at the hospital.
And it is real time. It really has nothing to do with Jim's 2 devices sitting in the same room right now, because they don't care where they are on the planet. It's all internet based. So
right, yeah, this is all
up,
going through the internet. Like to Don's point, like even though my 2 devices are technically next to each other, my computer and my iPad, it's all still going through our server that we have out on the internet. So, you know, it's whether, like Don said, if you know, you guys had one of these iPads and we're doing this, I would see it just as quick on my side here in New Jersey as, you know, I'm seeing it with the 2 devices right next to each other.
So, and then lastly to that, you know, you guys saw that in a pinch, he didn't put in any information other than just what we get now, which is the agency, the unit number, what hospital, and how quick will you be there. So if you did just that because you got your hands full as a lone provider doing CPR, you can just blast that out and the hospital will see you coming and know you're coming. The benefit there is something that we don't currently have is if, and again, this is not intended for initial use, but there is the potential right away. So why not throw it out there? If you wanted to, you know, live with Medcom and or live with the hospital that's going to be seeing this patient in the next few minutes, hit that video call, even by just leaving your device on the counter or in a case or in a cabinet. You don't get the video because it's going to be videoing whatever it's looking at, the ceiling of the ambulance, but you get live bidirectional voice with Medcom and with the hospital. It's no more, you know, unidirectional, you know, forgive me, I'm not a radio guy, but I have to let go of my button before you can talk type of situation.
Right. Yeah, it's typically called half duplex. So only one side could talk at a time. Obviously with this is technically like being on a Zoom conference like we're on right now. So the multiple people that may be on that call can obviously all speak at the same time.
And that can be just as simple as, hey, listen, I'm alone, but we're coming. We need hands when we get there. This guy's a train wreck. We're doing the best we can. And it's encrypted. It's only on the device. It disappears on the device. You know, it gives us a capability that I don't know I ever thought we'd actually see. So pretty exciting, I think.
Definitely. And by the way, you guys probably saw pop up on the iPad a few seconds ago. So I sent this alert, and if you remember, right now I have my computer signed in as the Medcom device as opposed to the ED device. So I didn't get the flashing acknowledge and was not able to acknowledge it. And after that 90 seconds expired, we got the alert popping up on the EMS device saying that it was not acknowledged by the ED. And again, you're not hearing it because I'm obviously doing this all over Zoom, but I get a very distinct sound to know that, hey, something went wrong. It's a type of sound as opposed to like a badoop type sound letting you know that it was good. So it's very obvious that something didn't happen correctly.
And this is the quietest group of EMS people I've ever heard in my life. So try it again.
Yes, any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
You were talking about hospitals on diversion before. If you select a hospital that's currently on diversion as your destination, is that going to throw a flag or anything for you?
So right now, our app won't know if a hospital's on diversion or not. So that's actually a question that came up from the folks at Medcom that we're going to be doing a little thinking on. Because right now, if you were to send the alert, again, it's going to go to the hospital. It's also going to copy Medcom. So Medcom could either call you directly from their device or send you, one of the group chats saying, hey, that hospital is on diversion. You can't go there. You'll need to, redirect to, hospital B, whatever it may be. The dilemma is right now, if they were to do that, you would have to start a new alert to that second hospital. So we're looking into a way to come up with an easy way to basically be able to just change your destination after the alert has been started. So like I said, we're working on that internally now to figure out the easiest way to do that. So once we've got an update on that, obviously we'll let Don and the team know so they're aware.
Thank you.
Sure.
But no, that diversion is a great point. It's something that we've been discussing. Think of this as, again, right now, an immediate replacement for what we do by radio, which is, I say, hey, I want to go to hospital X, and Medcom tells me hospital X is on diversion. What else you got? So this is literally a direct replacement for that. Rather than doing it on radio, we do it in the device. The benefit is, hospitals go on diversions for different reasons. And there is the potential with medical controls interaction here to actually have those conversations about, well, we're not on that type of diversion. Like, we can still see the patient you have, so there's no need to take an additional trip, be out of service longer and everything else. And that's a future capability here with the texting, with the video, and with the photo, is the potential to really have that interaction with medical control and the hospital collaboratively to see, are you truly closed to every single patient, or can you see this one? Because, the hospitals are just like us, they don't get to pick and choose, but, when they're closed to everything, it may not necessarily mean everything. So we'll see where that leads. We'll look at doing exactly, as I'm saying, a direct replacement for radio to a digital world, but definitely on the horizon for future improvement.
Okay, any other questions, guys? Okay, there is one other piece I wanted to show because I'm just looking back at my outline of the points I needed to hit, and I did forget one thing earlier. So I'm just going to back up, and I'm actually going to sign my computer in as one of the hospitals again, because I just want to show something from there. So I mentioned earlier how this obviously runs on the different types of devices, Android, iPhone, PCs, etc. So if you're using a PC that does not have GPS capability in the field, so, say it's a Panasonic Toughbook or, some other laptop, whatever the case may be, that doesn't have GPS capability, what will happen is when that alert gets sent in, it's not going to show this field over here with like the ETA and everything because there's no GPS, so it can't automatically fill that in. So what would happen is, and I'm just going to bring the iPad back up. So what would happen is if we go into my screen here of that case I currently have open, on the PC devices that don't have a GPS, and again, we're going to work with each of the agencies as we're, helping get the account set up on your devices. If we determine that you don't have the GPS capabilities on your device, after clicking notify, there's going to be this add new event button that you can click where you can manually add an ETA, and that will allow you to just type it in. So again, it's not going to be updating in real time or show your position on the map or any of that fancy stuff, but at least EMS or the ED will know, hey, they're going to be here in 15 minutes. And again, since it's going to be time stamped, they'll be able to see when you said that 15 minutes. So again, if I were to just manually add it in, the ETA box pops up and I'll just go in and say 15 minutes. And then basically on the hospital side, they're going to see that when they look in that case, and they'll be able to, if I bring it up again down here on the screen, they'll be able to see, hey, the ETA was 15 minutes and they added that at 2047. So basically they'll be here at, 2102.
And the acknowledgement from the region is it was only last year that in the annual survey, we began asking agencies, how many of you have electronic devices? So, EPCR being implemented helped crack that egg to get us electronic devices. Complimentary question was how many have cameras in those devices? So the responses were over 85% of our agencies have cameras. So that was all in anticipation of eBridge coming. So, the reality of our devices are they probably don't last for more than a year or two. So don't stress if you don't have it today. This will be a phased in, nobody's going to be forced or left behind based on finances, ability, technology, or anything else. We all have masters and bean counters that we answer to, so don't stress it. We'll take this as quick as you, as the agencies and the providers out there doing it, dictate. So we want your feedback. We need you to really take the reins here and drive this forward to, giving us capabilities that we didn't have. So just Jim, talk about how the logins work, just for everyone's awareness.
Sure.
For unit-based.
Sure. So basically the way it's going to work is we're going to, we've already gotten the list from Don and his team that kind of listed out all the agencies and all the unit numbers and everything like that. So we've made all those accounts. And essentially the way it will work is if you have, a dedicated iPad that's always on the Medic 6 truck, for example, basically that iPad only needs the Medic 6 login on it because it's always going to be that iPad on that truck. Now, we know the reality is that that rarely happens. More often than not, you're going to have devices that float between trucks. So what we would do in that case is essentially when you download the app and run it, we're going to give you kind of a master username and password to put in, which will set up all of the unit numbers for your agency on each of your devices. So the way that'll work, if I bring up my iPad again, if I go onto the screen here and back on the home screen, there's this little 3-dot menu up at the top. So the way it works is the app is going to remember the last unit number that you were signed in as. And then if you want to change that unit number, you can click that 3-dot menu and click sign out. And now that's going to give you a list of all your unit numbers. So my device here, as you can see, because I use it for tons of different demos, I got a whole bunch of different devices from different agencies and everything in here. But again, for you guys, this list is only going to show your, agency's unit number. So you would go through and find the one that you want to sign in as. And there is, by the way, a search at the top. So if there's any of the bigger agencies that, you wanted to go in and search, like, for example, I know this one is labeled as REMSCO. So I could start typing in REMS and then boom, it finds the REMSCO EMS unit that I've been using. And then I just click on that and it'll automatically sign me in as that device. And now I'm ready to go ahead and send my notification. And when the hospital receives it, it's going to show as REMSCO Unit 1.
So the same way he's switching back and forth between different accounts, you'll be able to do that within your own agency, and your agency is in control of those passwords and those accesses. So that'll be given to you, from GD to the region out to your agencies when the time comes. We're not there just yet. So don't try and do this tonight. Don't go to your chiefs and commissioners tomorrow and say, where's our login? Because they don't have them just yet. We have one more night of training. Then we'll get to everyone who's been trained, make sure that there's no final questions. One of the questions coming your way as the end user is, what type of training or documentation would you like to supplement these live ones? Is that just a recording of this call, which we already have? Is it something you can print out? Is it a PDF? Is it a YouTube video? For you to refresh yourself, to go over some things that you may still not be solid on, and more importantly, to unveil this to a broader audience. The reality is we're looking to onboard over 3,000 providers during the field phase in. So the pilot is only 6 agencies, intentionally small, so that we get a good manageable capture and snapshot of where we are and where we want to be.
Don, this is Rob from East Rockley. Will we have a sandbox to do like an agency level onboarding?
So we have a sandbox environment right now. I guess we'll add that to the list to the agencies and the providers is, how much more lead time do you foresee, or is this pretty intuitive? Do you think you'd like to give it a shot? Everything was sort of structured to be in our own vernacular here from Nassau. The ALS BLS notification button wasn't originally labeled that. We had GD rename that to something that was more familiar to us. It seems, and the hope is that it should be pretty straightforward. It's a direct transition to what we know. But yeah, that'll be part of the feedback from you and your test subjects, if you will, about what they envision needing to move forward.
Yeah, I could see, I agree with you. I hope that this is intuitive for 90% of our providers. I think that there may be some angst or some trepidation for folks that may not be technologically savvy to just want to get hands on it and run through it without a patient in front of them. Hence the sandbox question. I don't think it's going to be a large use, but I could see 1 or 2 folks want to go through that. But we could also adjudicate that with, don't do it live on the truck, wait until you have somebody who's comfortable and watch them do it too.
Well, like the PCR system where we have the fake provider that everyone can play with, which is a sandbox, it's real, but it doesn't go anywhere. We have that right now with the eBridge system between some of our REMSCO test devices and a fake hospital, for lack of a better description. So we can definitely always use that for agency level training. And as you guys know, we'll do that in person. We can do that via video. We'll do that however your members need it to get it across.
And Don, one thing I could look into doing, we'll talk more about it offline, but just like how right now, we have the list of the hospitals, I could potentially put another choice down there, called test device, which would essentially send the alert to like that sandbox group that we've set up for you guys. So you obviously may not have someone available to respond back to them when they send it, but at least it lets the EMS side go through the motions of what they need to do to see exactly, how the alert sending and everything works.
Absolutely. I just want everyone forewarned when that in the sandbox goes off on my tablet at 3 a.m. and my wife answers. Good luck with that one.
Yeah, we could probably set up a different account that it'll go to for you.
So any other last minute questions? We're almost 50 minutes in, so that's not terrible. And then while you're chewing on that, last minute thoughts, this is certainly not intended to be the end all be all of the conversation. So please, please, please get to your members. Thank you for your time. Shoot us questions, ideas, how comes, what ifs. That's the rationale behind the pilot program.
Okay, any other questions, guys? All right. Well, I thank you guys very much for the time today, coming on here and watching us go through this. I hope you guys are excited as we are, because I think this is really going to be a nice step forward and it's going to really benefit everyone, from EMS, the hospitals, and especially the patients. So this is definitely an exciting time.
Thank you so much. More to follow.
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.